I guess I'll just share my testimony and then I guess whatever else God wants me to talk about. But I grew up Catholic, so I went to Catholic school and I I never actually knew who Jesus was. I always heard of God. I knew of God, but I never knew like who I was praying to, like at church when I would go. Um, and I only went because I had to go at school. It was never like my choice. Um, and when I was probably around 16, I graduated from that school that was Catholic, and I just never ever thought about Jesus. He was never a thought in my mind. It's not like I was like against him or I wasn't like an atheist, but I just never thought about him. And then when I was 16 years old, I started to really, really struggle with mental health. I struggled with severe depression, and there was a point when I was 16 where I was because I like how you said how depression and anxiety are, what did you say? It's like brother, something like,
Like brother and sister.
hmm.
Yeah.
And so I was so anxious. I was like literally scared of everything. I kind of sent myself into like an existential crisis, and my brain likes to ask really big questions, like what my purpose is, why am I here, like all those things. And I was just struggling so much with finding my purpose and like my identity and like who I would let all these people around me all the time tell me who I am. I never had a foundation. I never knew where my worth like was. I just kind of, if someone told me something that was hurtful or they would insult me or tell me who I am, I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I am that, you know? And and so when I was 16, I was struggling really bad with depression and then I ended up leaving high school. I ended up doing homeschool. But that was really isolating because I wasn't around people. I think the only thing I wanted to do was just isolate myself and like dwell in this feeling. But it just got worse. And then I came out of that. I didn't find Jesus then, but that's sort of when I started to struggle. And then when I got a little bit better when I was like 17, um, but I never was like joyful. I had like very temporary happiness. If I would like hang out with friends, I would find happiness with them, but then I would come home and then once again, I'm like dealing with this void and I'm never feeling like I have a foundation. Um, and and then when I would say, I think right when I turned 18, I started I don't know what happened, but I fell into a very bad depression. I just I dealt with a lot of thoughts of just, I feel like when you don't know what your purpose is, you kind of start to, at least for me with depression, those thoughts of like, okay, like I don't really see what my point is here. And so I dealt with a lot of thoughts of just not wanting to be here anymore. And I didn't necessarily want to die because I didn't know, I was scared, but I didn't really see myself living a life outside of these feelings that I was feeling. It sort of felt like my life was just going to be depressing forever. And and I was just forever going to be like trapped with this like anxious feeling all the time. Um, and so there was this one night, and I was 18, and I was picturing myself turning 19, and I was like, "Ugh, I don't know if I'm gonna make it there." Like I was so scared, so sad. I was just like, I just don't see myself making it to that point. And then and I still didn't think about Jesus. He was never in my mind. And then one night, um, I was once again, I felt a little agoraphobic because I was so anxious. I was scared of going outside. So I isolated myself again. And there was this one night I was scrolling on TikTok, and this Christian influencer, her name is Ali Yost, and came up on my For You page, and it was a video of her talking about God. And it's so funny because you kind of have to be on Christian TikTok for something to come up. So that's what was so weird is I wasn't on Christian TikTok, I guess. And so this video of Allie came up on my For You page, and it was her talking into the camera. She was like crying, and she was like, "Hey, like, just hang on a little bit longer. God has so much in store for you. Like, just wait." And she kept saying, "Just wait." And I was like, okay, like, I'm just, I guess I never really thought about God. And so I went to bed that night and I watched this video super late, and I was like, really, really having bad thoughts that night. And then that video came up and I was like, okay, like I'm just gonna go to bed. I'll be fine. And then the next morning I woke up and I started scrolling through her page more. And I was like, this woman has a certain light in her eyes that I've never seen before. I'm like, what is that? Like, I was so drawn to her because she had a certain light about her, and I didn't know what it was. And her videos brought me like a different sense of security. And so anyway, that I was watching her videos during the day, and then I kind of just forgot about it and I stopped watching them. And then I was getting ready for bed, and it's probably like around midnight, and I was just in such a bad headspace, and I was laying down and I was getting ready to go to sleep. And I remember it's so hard to explain this because it was so just, I don't really have words, but sometimes I just don't have words to explain Jesus. But it almost was like I was getting ready to go to bed, and it almost felt like Jesus, because I was laying to my right, and I remember I felt like suddenly this like warm presence was like in my room. It was all around me. Like it felt like Jesus like came in my room and put his arms around me, and he was like, I just remember it was like a sense of peace and like a rescuing. Like it was like I just like I love the verse that's it's in Matthew about how he leaves the 99 to find the one. And yeah, it was like he literally came in my room, the Holy Spirit, and he was there. And it was like it was so crazy because like I had never experienced anything like that before in my life. And I could not deny that it was him. Like I knew it was him, which was so crazy because like I never felt him before. But I knew it was him. And so anyway, yeah, it felt like he just took my hand and he told me that I was gonna be okay. And the next morning, I was like, because I had no idea what I was doing. I never read the Bible. I had never really, I've prayed in moments where like I need a miracle, but I never knew who I was praying to. And so I prayed to Jesus, and I told him, I was like, I don't know how to do this, but I know that I just met you, and I know that that was you, and I want to give my life to you. And so I looked up because I had no idea what I was doing. And so I looked up, how do I give my life to Jesus? I was like, how do I do this? I don't even know how people read the Bible. But so yeah, the next day I gave my life to him. And he really saved me. He rescued me from, it was only him. Like there's no other explanation on why I would have gotten out of that. And it was him. It was like I love what Julie said about how when you come out, it was his footprints and not yours. Something like that. Like he was the one carrying you. That has been my favorite quote for like ever since I met him because he literally pulled me out of the trenches. Like literally saved me. Felt like I was actually living in hell. And he gave me a reason. My life just isn't worth anything without him. And yeah, I love this guy. I don't know if you guys know, but his name is Bryce Crawford. And I love his story. He dealt with a similar um, feelings. Like we both dealt with depression and suicidal thoughts. And he said, like, I gave my life to somebody who wanted it because I didn't. And it's so true. That's where my purpose is in Jesus. And I think one of the biggest things that changed my life was like he says who I am, you know? Nobody on social media, no one, your parents, your siblings, your friends, whoever it is, even if it's like encouragement, it's like that's really sweet, but at the end of the day, Jesus is the only one who defines me. And that's what really changed my life. So, yeah. I don't know. I feel like ever since I met him, all I've wanted to do was talk about him. And I know that that sometimes doesn't come easy for people because our world is so judgmental and people think you're crazy, a Jesus freak, but I really am the Jesus freak in my family because my family is not, following the same path. And so I think God just, my first question that I asked him was, what does it mean to use somebody? I never knew what that meant. And I asked him every day, I was like, what does it mean to use someone? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. And little did I know he was sort of using me as a light to maybe people my age who don't know him and or who do know him and are afraid to talk about him. And then also for my family and because maybe it's like I grew up in the Hollywood, like in the industry, and there's so much darkness in that environment, and people can be so lost because, you're putting yourself out there. And I think even like vanity can become something that people, struggle with. And so when Jesus has brought me opportunities to share his light in that industry, and so that's why I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's what it means that you're using me for that and to share your light into places that are where people are far from you and places that are so dark. And so yeah, he really changed my life. And there's moments where, like I do feel far from God as everyone does. And I love what you said, China, about how if you said something about how if you feel far from God, it just shows that how close you were to him. And that's something I've been struggling with for probably like a week now of really feeling like I'm like, where are you, God? Like, where did you go? Things like that. But it's like, I think sometimes, I don't know, I feel like sometimes God will test us when we really can't feel him and we're like, where did you go? I know I felt you like yesterday. What happened, you know? But my faith is not based on feelings because my feelings sometimes are all over the place, but just knowing that he's there. And I think sometimes he can test us in moments where we really can't feel him and test our obedience. And if we'll still stay as faithful to him as we would when we can feel him. And so that's what he's been showing me a lot this week. And yeah, that's sort of my story. I feel like I've only been following him for a year now, but he literally has completely renewed my mind. And it's so cool because I just get to see how much he works in my weakest moment and how powerful he is when I am just so incredibly weak and I've nothing to give him. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And he's just like, okay, well, now I can finally step in, you know? And so that's just my story and how God rescued me. And I just love Jesus so much. And I just yeah, you are never too far for God. He can literally save you from absolutely anything. So yeah, that's my story.